Welcome, my dear friends. It is great to see you. I am Stephen Clements, a writer, a gamer, and an appreciator of big brain activities in general. On this channel, I perform dramatic readings of my stories, I provide role-playing game reviews, and I get to interview interesting people. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at Adventure Module DP2, Musicland, written by Joseph Bloch, who runs the YouTube channel Greyhawk Grognard, which, if you're into this kind of thing, which hopefully you are since you're watching this episode, you should absolutely be watching. He's really funny, and he's got a bunch of really good stuff on that channel. While clearly inspired by the writing style of AD&D First Edition adventures, Musicland is not written for a specific game system and can be easily used with D&D Basic, both Advanced Dungeons & Dragons editions, Adventures Dark and Deep, and any old school RPG system. The book says it is designed to challenge a party of 3 to 6 player characters of mid-level, which I assume to mean levels 5 through 10. Now let's see what the module has to say for itself. On the cover, you're trapped in a land where musical instruments are alive and music itself is created. But beware, there are dangers aplenty beyond the living instruments who serve the king of all instruments. Criminals, demons, monsters, and even weird creatures to whom music itself is anathema all stand in your way. Can you find your way home from this bizarre and fascinating place? I didn't stutter or misread that. This adventure takes place in the dimension of Platonic ideals, the cosmic space described by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, where the perfect version of everything exists, and everything we experience in the real world is but an imperfection reflection thereof. When I saw this at Joseph's booth at North Texas RPG Con, I was intrigued, because here was an actually novel adventure idea. I've been reading role-playing games and fantasy fiction for decades, including the Dungeons & Dragons setting dedicated to the different realms of existence called Planescape, and I have never once heard of visiting the world of Platonic forms. So right off the bat, bravo, Joseph, you're already showing up with an original idea. What does an adventure in a world of Platonic music forms look like? Well, to find out, you'll have to venture into the land of spoilers. But in this review, they will be fairly light. However, just know that I've now done my moral duty by giving you that warning. With that out of the way, let's get into this thing. From the GM's introduction, Musicland is a demiplane that drifts along the ethereal plane, a dimension that underpins the real world in most game cosmologies, and which represents the Platonic ideal of all music, from the grandest symphonies on the material plane to the angelic trumpets of heaven, to the nightmarish drumming of the abyss. It all originates here and radiates out to the rest of the multiverse. Many of the inhabitants of the strange land look like musical instruments come to life, because they are exactly that, living musical instruments. They can be friendly or hostile, depending on how the PCs treat them and present themselves. The gist of the adventure is that the party winds up in Musicland, has to gather clues on how to get back out, and they will encounter a bewildering array of non-player characters along the way. The writer gives several ideas on how to get your party to the adventure, including a magical gate, a legendary staircase, and several more, but any way to get them off their normal world and into a wild world of music come alive works. Unlike plot-driven adventures, Musicland is set up as a number of interesting locations, noteworthy NPCs described just enough to be useful while leaving room for the DM to make them their own, and clues scattered throughout on how to get back home. Bloch gives us the basic adventure scenario outline, guidance on how it could go, and then he gets out of the way so the DM and the players can flesh it out through play and find their unique way through this module. A special emphasis is placed on how weird the demiplane is, as many spells work differently here, normal means of planar travel don't work, and the living instruments speak in musical notes and not regular language, because why would they? Even communications will require creativity, and your party will never be more happy to have a bard around, as bards have a natural affinity for understanding this language. The first location the party arrives at is the Musical Grove, a circular stand of trees that make their own music. This module also features one of the best lines I have ever read. If the PCs remain here for more than 3 rounds, a pack of 5 wild French horns will attack. When I read that one line, I knew I was in the exact right place, because that is bonkers. I mean, who writes this stuff? Getting attacked by a pack of wild French horns. Who ever thought those words would ever go together? So anyway, while the module slightly alters the music instruments to have more relatable shapes, like adding legs, arms, and hands, I like the idea of them being free-floating musical instruments. And getting mobbed by a rabid pack of brass seems like a wet dream straight out of late Meatloaf songwriter and music legend Jim Steinman's imagination. Speaking of Jim, if somehow he didn't make it into heaven, I hope he ascended to a place like Musicland. Because if anybody in all of human history ever made love to a set of blaring speakers, I'm confident he did it at least once. So we have animalistic French horns, vampire guitars, a mezzo-soprano crime family, cello honor guards, worm-like concertinas, and more. The book describes banjos as easygoing instruments with good senses of humor. But if you look closely at their alignment, you'll see the truth. Chaotic neutral, the alignment of unreasonable players throughout history. Any player intent on being a murder hobo that robs from other party members, but is stuck in a campaign where the DM says everybody has to be a good or neutral alignment, this is the alignment they'll pick. Chaotic neutral means selfish and amoral, so banjos are just as likely to stab you unprovoked as share their jug of moonshine, just like every banjo I've ever met. All of these living instruments are ruled by the king of instruments. The king of instruments is an imposing, stern figure who brooks no nonsense from those he is addressing. He maintains the rhythms and melodies of Musicland through means both subtle and gross. And his agents, through his right hand the Chamberlain, quickly inform him of all that transpires within his realm. Getting on his good side is one way out of Musicland. Other powerful entities the party can encounter, ally, or fight include Ambusius, the demon lord of music, who seeks to corrupt all music through atonality, skipped beats, and confusing harmonies. And then there is Harpocrates, an elder being from beyond our multiverse who seeks to silence all music forever. See, in his home reality, a tasty guitar riff can destroy whole planets. A child playing a medley on a piano can burn whole civilizations to the ground. And he is no joke, because his form of attack is to throw venomous snakes at you. An unlimited number of snakes that he throws at you. Both of those evil entities were drawn from real-world religion and cultism. Harpocrates was the Ptolemaic Egyptian god of silence. Ambusius is probably an adaptation of the occult tome Ars Gedia's demon Amdusius, a demon lord associated with thunder, the sound of trumpets, and apparently can be commanded to deliver concerts using invisible instruments. From the Wikipedia entry, he is the demonic maestro of the cacophonous music that is played in hell, and hopefully none of you ever have to hear it. While I've only read and not played in or ran this adventure, it looks like a heck of a lot of fun and a truly different scenario with which to challenge your players. The adventure itself is about 10 pages long, with the remainder of the total 26-page run being taken up by the new monsters and NPCs we've discussed, setting material, useful new spells, magical items, and concepts that abound throughout this demiplane. Indeed, this demiplane itself is a very worthy adventure setting. And if you're into jaunting through different planes of existence in search of new experiences, you need this adventure. Indeed, this demiplane is worthy of future adventures with your group once you've played through Musicland. And if you are one of those people who likes to go through the different planes of existence, looking out new experiences for your player character, or more brain teases for you, the player, to have to work your way through, you absolutely need this adventure. But be careful come the next full moon, because the rampaging instrument that bit you may have cursed you into becoming a werehorn. That's right, Musicland even has its own form of lycanthropy, where the light of the full moon you may find yourself filled with bloodlust and on the loose as a were-Wagner tuba. My man thought of everything. Normally I include a publication history and key facts that I could find online about the RPG module that I'm reviewing. But this is an adventure from a small publisher, and I couldn't find the kind of details I was looking for just from searching online. However, we're not missing out on those details, though, because lucky for us, Joseph Bloch loves to talk, and he's even good at it. So we're going to get all those facts in the publication history straight from the man himself. Well, my dear friends, please welcome to the episode. We got the author of Musicland with us today, Joseph Bloch, the Greyhawk Grognard. I appreciate you coming on to give us some background.
Thank you. I always appreciate the plug.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I enjoyed it, and I want more people to know about it. So I see that this adventure is published by BRW Games. So can you tell us a little about BRW?
Yes. BRW is basically my publishing company. I started it up in order to start publishing my Castle of Mad Archmage and Adventures Dark and Deep stuff, and just kind of kept rolling with it because I had so much fun doing the four things that I wanted to do, that I had set out to do. I just kept writing stuff. So that's basically it. I don't have any other writers yet. I'm always looking, but I just haven't found the right fit. But I do use a number of freelance editors and artists and so forth to help with the finished products.
Well, good to know. And why stop if you're having a good time? You might make a
Exactly,
few bucks
exactly.
now and then, and you're enjoying yourself. It's keeping you out of trouble. It's keeping you off the streets, and that's good.
Just like D&D in general.
All right. So, where are BRW modules available for us to go check out, see what you got?
Everything is available on Drive-Thru RPG. You get there and search for BRW Games. You'll find it right away. You can also go to the BRW Games website, brwgames.com, and there's a link to the web store there.
And we'll make sure folks have the links in the description so they could go check that stuff out. I noticed from the ones I was checking out on Drive-Thru RPG, they're both available in print on demand and the PDFs, or is all your stuff like that?
Correct.
Good deal.
Almost all. There's a couple of things that are only PDF, but those are eventually going to get incorporated into hardcover books as I slowly go through the process of removing the open game license from all my stuff because of Wizards of the Coast shenanigans earlier this year.
As you frequently warn us, so you don't want the Pinkertons showing up. And
watch out for Pinkertons, yes.
I mean, you are a veteran.
Where are the Pinkertons after that big heist at Gen Con, though? That's
all right. So, Musicland, this wild thing. When was this first published?
Yes, this was originally published in 2018, and I did a reissue of it this year, re-edited it, moved some things around, took out the OGL references, and made the appropriate changes for that.
And so this is DP2. What does that series code mean?
Demiplanes. The other DP1 module is Bitterbark Circus, which is evil clowns and jesters, and that also takes place in its own little demiplane. I'm working on a DP3 right now. I don't want to give too much away, but it's another self-contained demiplane that you can kind of just stick in anywhere into any campaign.
Can you give us any teaser for the flavor?
This one is called the Menagerie. It's basically an abandoned, overrun zoo.
That's interesting. Yeah, I love the self-contained little reality you made in this adventure. For the module itself, who did the art? Because that was pretty memorable stuff. It was different. I liked it.
The art for this one was done by Luigi Castellani and Michael Velarde.
How'd you get hooked up with them?
Yeah, I've used them before in other products, and I always enjoy working with them.
Yeah, it was a different style. It was fun. It was whimsical, played well to the demiplane. And the map, I like the map that y'all came up with. It was simple, but it was very accessible. Was it the same artist or who made the map?
One of them made the map and one of them did the internal things, and it's been 5 years, so I honestly don't remember which one did which. Same style for the map that we did with Bitterbark Circus. That has the same thing where it's basically a layout rather than a hex or spared out dungeon.
What were you thinking? What inspired you to make this really strange and wonderful module, Musicland? Or, as my wife might less charitably put it, what were you on when you came up with this? Because this is different.
Yeah, this is a weird one. I was directly inspired by the two Alice in Wonderland modules that were published back in the 80s, Land Beyond the Magic Mirror, Dungeon Land. I wanted to do something that was wacky and whimsical. In fact, one of the things that I gave to my artists there was a couple of cartoons from the 30s that had like musical instruments come to life. It was old Merry Melodies cartoons, and I sent them those for inspiration on the characters that you'd see in the thing. Some of them are direct parodies of characters from other TV shows and so forth. There's a Sopranos pastiche in there and so forth. There's a lot of little Easter eggs strewn around.
Oh yeah, no, it was a lot of fun to read and having those little details jump out at me. There's a lot in that thing, and I appreciate it. Now, do you have a musical background? Because it seemed like whoever
I do
wrote
not.
this.
I have, yeah. This was just the product of a lot of research on the thing, and I like to think that the fact that I am musically illiterate kind of helped me in terms of I wasn't too bound to reality when it came to this. So I could kind of go off in different directions, like the magical mystery forks that originally started off in the Castle of Mad Archmage. One of them actually does a note that doesn't exist. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to do it. It's magic, it should be impossible.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
some
Just
cases.
because we don't know about it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, or the world of ideal forms of music.
Right. It's very Platonic in that sense, where you have Plato's idea of the ideal form of different things. And I wanted to bring that into this as well.
So when you came up with the Where Wagner tuba, you were completely sober. You weren't under the influence of anything.
Yes.
Okay. I'll tell my wife
Yeah.
that.
The violins that use the bows as swords and things like that. Yeah. Like I said, a lot of the imagery came from those early cartoons where they did these kind of wacky things. But I kind of took that ball and ran with it.
That's
With
awesome.
the
You
French
certainly
horns that are dogs and so forth.
did. Yeah. Was there anything else, any other neat tidbits that we should know about Musicland?
Well, it also features one of the artifacts that's in the old first edition DM's guide, Heward's mystical organ. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like the centerpiece. If you need to have a quest, that's built in there. It's something that, to my knowledge, hadn't really been explored at all over the 40 plus years that, since the DM's guide was published. And it's always been something that's fascinated me. And I wanted to do something around that. So that's definitely a callback to something way back from the earliest days.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I just remember having read it back in the day and nowhere else. So, well,
Yeah.
good on you for keeping the old stuff alive, keeping it in circulation, keeping people learning about new things. I love it. Well,
Just wait till I start reading Burdock's Fables.
all right. Well, thank you for all that you do, Mr. Bloch. Appreciate you taking some time today to tell us about Musicland. Great talk to you. We'll do it again.
Thanks. I look forward to it.
And there you have it. Now, if you've played through Musicland or if you've run this adventure yourself, I would love to hear how that went and what you did with it. So please drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments below so I can check those out. And if you enjoyed this review of Musicland, I too enjoy people liking and subscribing. So you know what to do. In closing, I thank you for your time and that you chose to spend it with me. And as we dear, dear friends are soon to part, I wish you nothing but the best.